Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Making It Work, Recruiting Immigrants. I'm DJ Martin, Director of Advertising for the Portland Press Herald. Today, our business projects editor, Carol Coultas, will be moderating the panel discussion on strategies for recruiting and retaining new Mainers. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors for their support of our program. Thank you to Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, MEMIC, Cross Insurance, and Katahdin Trust Company. And with that, we'll turn it over to Carol and her panelists, and we hope that you enjoy.
Thanks very much, DJ. I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. This is our final Making It Work for 2021. And we wanted to look at the issue of hiring from immigrant communities because it's pretty top of mind. If you've been out doing any Christmas shopping, it's unavoidable seeing the "we're hiring" signs. It seems everyone in retail is trying to hire right now, and also within hospitality and also healthcare. And those are just some of the industries that are really facing some workforce challenges right now. So our demographic situation hasn't changed very much in the last 5 years. We have been dealing with these workforce challenges for a while. Right now, since 2014, more people are dying in the state than being born. And according to the Maine Department of Labor, our labor force is expected to get smaller and older through 2028. So some folks have been beating a drum saying we need to start looking and be more aggressive about hiring people from immigrant communities. And Dana Connors, who's the head of the Maine State Chamber, is one of the folks who's been putting that message out there. On a national level, the US workforce, it's expected that 83% of the growth in that workforce from 2000 to 2050 is going to be coming from new immigrants and their children. And Maine is really sort of behind the eight ball. About 13% of the population nationally is foreign born, but here in Maine, it's under 4%. What's good is that that population is growing and has been responsible for most of our population growth in the state of Maine for the last 5 years anyway. And also good news is that there is a whole host of new resources to help employers who are interested in hiring from immigrant communities. And I want to just give a shout out to Julia Trujillo Luengo, who's the director of the Portland Office of Economic Opportunity. They recently launched some new links, and because we like making it work to be very, very practical, here's some good tips and some good advice. I just want to mention these three websites, or these three links anyway, to one website, because it has really good practical information. And so the first one is an employer hub continuum, which is a one-stop shop for all different types of resources to help businesses be more inclusive in whatever they do in the workforce. So those are podcasts and webinars and articles and best practices across the country. And so that is one of the relatively new links I wanted to mention. Another thing that's happening in the greater Portland area is a Portland Professional Connections. And this is kind of like a matching service for foreign trained professionals with established business people and community leaders in Maine. Basically, it's a one-on-one meeting over coffee, and then a pledge by the Portland area professional to make a connection with 3 others in a particular industry. And that's a way for a lot of professionals who are coming from immigrant communities and want to know how they can be integrated into their chosen professions here in the States. It gives them an opportunity to network and understand better what is required of them in order to make that transition. And then finally, there's a New Mainers pathway to building a life in the Portland area, and that's a one-stop shop not for businesses, but for New Mainers, people from immigrant communities, where they can find resources to learn English, find childcare, food resources, finding a job, legal services, and global communities. And so those are just 3 links from one office in Portland to give you an idea of the kind of resources that are available if you're a business manager or an owner and you want to begin the process of recruiting and retaining employees from immigrant communities. But we have lots more to offer you, and three terrific panelists who are going to show that for us. So let me quickly introduce folks, and off we go. Our first panelist is Tabin, Tangila, Mesu, Kamba. I hope I got that right. He is CEI's program developer for workforce solutions. And before joining CEI, Tabin was the HR coordinator for talent and culture at Maine Public. Excuse me. He brings experience as a former minority outreach program coordinator for the Franny Peabody Center and Program, and a program associate for the New Mainers Resource Center for Portland Adult Ed. He also served as a technical manager for a nonprofit healthcare and advocacy organization in his home country, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. He holds an Associate of Science degree in Business Administration from the Southern Maine Community College and a BS in Business Administration from the University of Southern Maine. So welcome, Tabin. Also joining us are Beth Stickney. She founded and directs the Maine Business Immigration Coalition, which provides information, education, and advocacy on immigration and related issues from a business and an economic perspective. She's a lawyer, and she has specialized in immigration law and policy since 1986. Before founding the Maine Business Immigration Coalition, she served as the founding executive director of the Immigrant Legal Advocacy Project, and she initiated and taught immigration law courses at the University of Maine School of Law from 1994 through 2005. She's worked internationally in El Salvador and in Rome on human rights and asylum issues. So welcome, Beth. And Ben Conniff is our final panelist. He co-founded Luke's Lobster, a sustainable seafood company that is a certified B Corp that buys directly from fishermen, produces value-added products, and distributes to its own restaurant group, grocery businesses, and direct-to-consumer online market. Ben's worn almost every hat through Luke's Lobster's evolution, but right now he's focusing on brand and culinary development, innovation, sustainability, and importantly, social responsibility. He sits on the board of the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative and the Maine Business Immigration Coalition, and he advises many startups in the food and beverage industry. So welcome to you all, and let's get rolling here. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks, Maine employers continue to face real hiring challenges. So if a business associate of yours expressed interest in reaching out to immigrant communities to recruit new employees, what top 2 pieces of advice would you offer? And I'm going to throw that question to Luke, excuse me, not Luke, but Ben, because Ben, you're in the trenches. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, what are your top 2 pieces of advice for a business interested in hiring from an immigrant community?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. Thanks everyone for joining. The first thing I would say is, if you're interested in hiring from the immigrant community, actually reaching out to that community and to other groups who are working within that community, supporting that community, and offering the services that they need, building relationships throughout those organizations is really paramount. And for us, that started with Beth, with joining MEBIC, and the great advice that she was able to give us on the so many other organizations doing amazing work here in the area, supporting immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Spanning so many, from Catholic Charities and Immigrant Welcome Center and Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition. I could go on for a really long time and still leave out some groups. So getting involved and looking not just to go out there and hire, but also just be involved in the community in general and support the community in general. I think that's huge. That proves that you're not just in this because you happen to be short-staffed today. You're in this because you believe that immigrants play an important role in our society here, and they deserve to be supported. So I think that's the most important thing. And then after that is you have to be a good place to work. You have to be a really great place to work so that when you do have people come and join your company, they feel welcomed, they feel safe, they feel understood. Going out of your way to make sure that you have translation capability and that your, things that you put on paper, signage that you have up in your place of business are all translated into the appropriate languages, because the best way to attract employees is through the referrals from your current employees. So,
and Ben, excuse me, how many of the employees that you have, for instance, in your production facility come from immigrant communities?
We're probably about 80% of our company here in Saco, Maine, from immigrant communities. And that's been true in the lobster processing business since it started back in the 1970s and 80s. It's always relied heavily on Maine's immigrant communities, and you see the populations of lobster processing companies shift over time as the population of immigrants coming to Maine shifts, and they're just absolutely the backbone of lobster processing, which in turn is immensely critical to the lobster industry itself. Okay. So just to finish up what I was saying there, that if you have good internal referrals from people who work for you, who like working for you, it becomes so much easier to hire more people. And that's really important when you think about how you approach equity and inclusion in your business and how you make people from all origins feel comfortable. If you can do that, then they're going to tell their friends and family to work for you.
Great, thank you. And Tabin, what are your top two pieces of advice for a business interested in hiring from immigrant communities? And don't forget to unmute yourself there. There you
go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. There are many things that we can do to make sure that we can reach out to immigrant community and hire folks who really are here and they really want to work. On the top of what Ben said, I think HR professionals and executives should think of putting in place a targeted job posting. This is something interesting because immigrants, they are in our communities and they are places where you can find them. Also, you can create lasting relationships with those organizations when you can engage with them and networking with them. This is very important because if you just go to hire and then you get the folks you are looking for and then you don't come back for anything that they may need, that is not helpful. So you need to make sure that you can build a lasting and relationships with communities. And we have so many communities here in Maine. We have immigrants are regrouped in communities. So you have Congolese communities, you have Rwandese communities, you have Cambodian communities, you have so many communities which have leaders. So make sure that you can create good relationships with those communities and with their leaders. And then when you need to hire, you can pass on your information to leaders from those communities, and they will pass on that to people who are looking for jobs. That's something good to do, but also invest in these communities. One thing is to look to hire folks, but the other thing is to invest in the communities. How you can do that is, by working with organizations that support immigrants, by doing things such as mock interviews. For example, you may have folks who don't have a US work culture, and it could be the first job here. They would love to learn how that works, but you as HR, you can step in and volunteer by doing mock interviews, for example, or you can provide tours of your businesses that people can see how it looks like not only on papers, but have a chance to be in touch with communities and show them your businesses that can help. But also a good way also to do is to offer just internship, because we have so many people, they have experiences from overseas and they've not worked here in the US yet. But by providing them internships opportunities, they can learn from there and they can decide if this is a good place to work or not. So many things that can be done to reach out to immigrants, but also many immigrants, they use social media as well. If you want to reach out to them, they are on Facebook, but also on WhatsApp. However, WhatsApp is kind of, you need to be admitted to get into a group to reach out to folks. So there are so many things that could be done to reach out to immigrants and help businesses who are hiring. Thank you.
Yeah, those are all good suggestions. Thank you, Tabin. And how about you, Beth? What do you think are the top two pieces of advice you'd give someone who's interested in hiring from an immigrant community?
Well, I thank you again for putting together this panel. It's so timely given our workforce shortage and immigrants who are here who really want to work but do face barriers getting into the workforce. I'll echo what both Ben and Tabin said, but to add to some of what they said. As a lawyer, one thing that I see is particularly smaller employers who don't necessarily have a professional, HR staff person. Often people make mistakes in the, job posting, the interview process and the hiring process that can cause them to rule out talent who are actually eligible to work, but they might not think they are. So asking about immigration status or work authorization in a non-neutral way in an interview, and then thinking that somebody who has a work permit, well, maybe they're not going to be able to stick around for very long. Or in the job offer process, once again, bringing up, instead of saying something simple like, of course, should you accept the position, you'll have to show us within 3 days that you're authorized to work in the US. Saying something more specific, like you're going to have to bring in a passport, or your green card or whatever. I mean, people lose jobs all the time when they've been offered jobs because the employer insists that they need to see a green card. There is, actually, I'll ask this to be popped up maybe, or the link to go into the chat. I have a sort of do's and don'ts on those kinds of things that people can access through MUBIC's website. The other thing I'd say is, as Ben said, make sure your place is a good place to work. Word of mouth really is very, very powerful. One thing that you can do to make it a good place to work is maybe think about the benefits you offer. And to the extent that you're doing any kind of cafeteria plan, think about what's included in that cafeteria plan and think outside the box. If you're not located on a bus line, maybe think about hiring a van to help people get to your workplace and providing transportation to help people get to your workplace. Think about, for some people, they would rather have a bonus at the end of the year than a 401k plan, because even though that 401k plan will be great for them eventually, right now they have family back in their home country, and getting additional money that they can then send to help support their family back in the home country is more valuable to some employees than a 401k. And I'm happy. I've got lots of ideas. People can reach out to me, and I'm happy to chat with people about other thoughts on those lines.
So let me. I think that there are probably a lot of employers who are interested in hiring from immigrant communities because that's their own personal story. Like almost every one of us can talk about a grandparent or a great grandparent or someone who was in fact an immigrant and how they landed into their work history and their professional history. But I think that people are worried about doing the wrong thing. And so I wonder, what do you think for employers who are interested in things like, how do I overcome the language barrier? How do I make sure that our culture is accommodating to someone who's foreign born? Like, what kind of advice can you offer on that score, on that level? And Tabin, I'm going to ask you to take that question first. In the context of creating an inclusive workplace, if you're worried about, you don't want to step into it. So what kind of advice can you offer for blending cultures and dealing with language barriers?
Okay, good. Thank you. That is a good question. There are many challenges really when somebody comes here and want to find a job. Not only language barrier, there are so many. So as you know, when we hire, you start by crafting your job description, right? And when you craft your job description, there are things that businesses need to pay attention to. One thing I will start with will be the language that you put in. So many immigrants came to Maine, America, with education from the home countries. But when you are here, it will be good to say, hey, overseas foreign education and experiences are accepted. So if you can put that language in your job description, people will feel like, hey, I can apply for this position and I can. And beside that, the other thing is we need to be transparent and intentional if you want to hire immigrant. The other thing we can say is that, hey, here we accept folks with limited English, or we are requiring to be fluent in English to work here. And if you can say those things, folks may say, hey, no, I'm not wasting my time. I'm not applying because when I apply, they won't, look at my application or not. And beside that, there are other things really that really matter, such as online applications. I've seen in many online applications, they have already preloaded universities and colleges in there. So if you went, you have in foreign education, your university is not in that drop-down menu. Is not, and you cannot even submit your application because that blocks you from doing so. Right. So there are little things, but may have an impact when people are applying for jobs. But also when we are screening applications, you may see resumes that look different. They don't look like American resumes. You may find some other things there that you are like, wow. You may find employment gaps, and this could be considered a red flag for many HR. But please understand that folks have been in refugees camps, and they've spent there 5 years. People have been in America waiting for the work permit for 1 year or more, and it's normal that they may not have that continuity in their work experience. Other things is like eye contact. So in many cultures, African and other countries, they are not eye contact. So you may be talking to somebody and you feel like he's not confident, but it's not. It's a cultural thing, and he's not lying. It's just part of the culture that, a younger person cannot fix an older person, and that people, grow up with that. And also handshaking. Myself, one day I was working at Portland Education, and a people person I am, and I wanted to shake a hand of somebody, and she just told me, no, we don't shake hands. So those are cultural things that we need to be aware of when we hire. But the other good thing also is to ask, when you're hiring, how can I help you? How can I help you to succeed? Because many people may not be open up, specifically when they have limited English, and that can be an issue. The last one I'd love to say is the job offer. So when you offer folks jobs here in America, please offer the salary, the wage that you have, the highest we have, because the culture here is to negotiate a wage, but that doesn't happen in many countries, right? So you may expect to offer them, then they will negotiate with you, but most folks don't. So please offer what you have, what you feel. It's a good thing that people can stay with you and work for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabin. And Ben, how about if you build on that? I know that you've had some specific strategies at Luke's Lobster for blending cultures that has been pretty effective. So can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say part of it goes back to your core company culture. So stripping away all these immediate hiring needs and just looking at kind of who you are as a company. And Luke's was founded in 2009, really with empathy at the core of who we are. It's, you know, treating each other the way that person wants to be treated is a big part of how we've always run our business. And that's sort of, we, as a company that has restaurants in New York City, we always sort of look at the dichotomy of what the New York subway way of existence, which is to sort of plow everybody over to get where you need to go, versus the Maine way, which is taking that moment to have empathy and understand where others are coming from, and keep that in your mind as you interact and as you, judge what's going on in your interaction. And I think bringing empathy to interactions with your team and understanding that just because something's the way you've done it your whole life or seen it done here in the US your whole life, that doesn't mean that it's the way it should be done, the way it has to be done. And to build on what Tabin was saying, just having that sense of relativity, just because eye contact's important to me doesn't mean it has to be important for everyone, or handshaking or any of those things. It's really about taking that moment to remember that different cultures prioritize different things and act in different ways. Then on top of that, I think to effectively, create a community and communicate with one another, there is an investment that's involved. So, we're lucky to have within each of our immigrant communities at least one person who does speak English. And so we tap those folks to help with translation, and we pay them. We don't just pull them into a room when we need translation for a teammate who's trying to make a point that we don't understand. We pay them for the time that they put into that. And that's a valuable service and should be treated that way. We also pay for a service called Opus, which is basically a micro-learning ESL and other training program. So our team, when they clock in the morning, will get a quick 5-minute exchange on either over text or over WhatsApp. It'll be in their own language, but it teaches them the English language skills that are relevant to the job that they're doing. We also have all our other types of training go through that Opus program in the language that each teammate speaks. And, it costs some money, but you weigh that against the opportunity cost of being understaffed because you haven't gone out and spent a little bit of money on these programs that make people comfortable working for you. And the investment really does make sense.
That ties into the whole thing. You were saying about investing in outreach into these into immigrant communities. Good. Yeah. So I'm gonna actually, Beth, I'm gonna ask you to take the first stab at the next question, because that's really your wheelhouse. And so whenever I have this conversation with people, there's always this sort of ironic dichotomy. we're desperate for people. We have so many jobs that are unfilled right now. And we have lots of people within immigrant communities who came here for a better way of life and are eager to work. And then we have this whole strata of regulations that prevent, well, create barriers anyway for that, for there to be a way for those two groups, those two objectives to meet and mutually benefit each other. So my question is, with respect to the regulations that keep a lid on integrating more immigrants into Maine's workforce, if you could just wave a magic wand and eliminate or change one of those restrictions or regulations, which would it be and why? And Beth, I know that you've been, this is your wheelhouse, so I'm going to ask you to tackle that question first.
Sure. Well, the immigrants who have been coming to Maine most recently, because quite frankly, the pipeline of immigrants through the family and employment and the refugee streams of people coming from abroad, quite frankly, was really strangulated over the last 4 years, and it's only slowly reopening. So the people who have been managing to still come are the people who have been coming over the southern border, whether they be from Central America or whether they be, the folks who are coming to Maine. Many of them are coming over the southern border, but they originate from Angola and the DRC, Haiti, etc. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of asylum seekers still coming in, each year, mostly from the southern border. And we have a draconian federal immigration policy created by Congress in 1996 that says that when you file for asylum, you are not allowed to get a work permit until your case has been in process for at least 180 days. So you are forced to not be able to work legally until your case has been pending for at least that long. And now, due to processing backlogs, because immigration was eviscerated in the last administration, truthfully, and they are extremely short-staffed, and they are having the same hard time that employers everywhere are having finding new staff. And it is taking upwards of a year for people to get their work permits once they actually are allowed to even ask for them. So, one magic wand would be, we need Congress to change the policy and go back to what it was until 1995. Which is, when you file your asylum application, you can file your work permit application at the same time. And if your application on quick review, it looks like it's not frivolous, you get your work permit right away. We absolutely should not be sidelining willing workers, keeping them from supporting themselves and having the dignity of being independent. It's a win-win for everybody if they can work. The other thing I would say is, we have to have immigration reform. And to get immigration reform, we need the business community to not be afraid to speak out about an issue that is admittedly, I think undeservedly, but nonetheless controversial, and have business say loud and often that our immigration system is not fair, it's not just, and it mistreats people who are coming with courage and bravery and tenacity for the same reasons that people came from in the Great Wave from 1880 to 1910, to have an opportunity for a better life and to contribute to, this country that is supposed to be the land of the free and the brave, and where you can lift yourself up if you work hard. We need to get back to a system that is more fair and open, because although Maine, as you pointed out at the beginning, is the nation's oldest state, the entire nation looks largely like me, gray-haired, getting closer to retirement age. And we haven't been birthing enough babies. The only way we will keep our economy strong is through immigration. Experts, economists are saying we need basically 3 million immigrants a year to hold our economy steady. Last year we had barely, it wasn't even 500,000. And so we have to reform our immigration system. And right now, we're trying to at least legalize the undocumented who are here and the folks who have temporary protected status in DACA, the dreamers, the folks who came as children, so that they will have labor mobility. Because if you have a precarious immigration status, you will tend to stay in the job that you're in and not move into a better job. And you won't have access to higher education, for example, without getting full legal status. And so in the Build Back Better bill, we are trying to get, at the moment, not permanent residency, that has been shot down by the parliamentarian, but we're trying to get legalization, 10 years worth of protection from removal and work permits, so that about 6.5 million undocumented folks would be able to come out of the shadows, have labor mobility, and ideally, we will have Congress in that time period actually deal with this issue and fix our immigration system and make it more fair and just and open.
So Beth, if you were able to, just from what you were just saying, if you impressed any of the business folks in our audience and you want to tie this together, you want business people to be more visible and to be louder, is there something on your website that would direct people to get behind those initiatives that you just mentioned in terms of the Build Better Act and what's going on with immigration reform?
Yeah, I'll put the URL in the chat, but I would encourage people to just email me through the website or email me directly. I've already put that into the chat to let me know they're interested, and then I can send, it's been a moving target, and I've been involved on national conversations so much that I'm a little bit behind on my website. But I'm happy to engage people. We're doing op-eds, we're doing national sign-on letters to congressional leadership and the White House. There's a number of different ways that people can engage. And the fight is not going to be over this year. This is going to, it's been a long slog already. It's been, the last major immigration reforms that were positive were in 1990. So, we've been at it for a while, we will be at it for a while, and we need more allies. We also need, quite frankly, people to let our governor know that this is an imperative, because we need every governor, the National Governors Association, to be pressuring Congress for this, the health of the state's economy, and so we have vibrant communities of people, and more diversity, more children, etc.
Good. And so Ben, let me ask you, what regulation would you like to see changed? What makes you pull your hair out when you're onboarding new workers, or when you're dealing with the HR issues? What makes you crazy that you wish you could change?
I mean, I would echo the exact things that Beth said. I mean, the fact that we have a pool of really talented people here in Maine right now, stuck at home, unable to work, when, they could be contributing to our local economy, in addition to supporting themselves. And there's absolutely no logical reason for those people to not have, the ability to come to work. It's mind-boggling to me, and it does drive me crazy to know that those people are here and they're ready, and just out of some I don't know, some weird prejudice, we just tell them, you better wait a year and not contribute before you get to. And I also agree with better, clearer paths to permanent residency and citizenship. I mean, we are seeing we're seeing folks from our industry move in droves from here up to Canada right now because Canada is doing a better job at making it clear of how people will be able to actually get permanent residency there and get to work. And every day we hear of another family that's moved to Canada because they're in the same position we are, but they're doing a better job. And that's got to change, and we have to really pressure our politicians to make that change for the good of everyone.
Good, thank you. We're getting kind of close to the part where we'll take questions, but I wanted to ask, actually, it's a question that came in sort of sideways for our webinar today. And I'm going to ask Tabin if you would answer this question, because you and I chatted about this issue when we spoke earlier. And that is for employers who are concerned if they have been successful and they have some portion of their workforce is from an immigrant community, but they're concerned about wages and wanting to increase wages, but it might put their immigrant workers in a situation where they may lose benefits that they could be receiving or they are receiving from the state. So like there's a wage threshold that if they go over that wage, they'll earn more money, but they might lose something like their food assistance or their affordable housing help or something else that's designed to help people from immigrant communities get their feet under them while they assimilate into the state here. So for those employers who are struggling with that, Tabin, what do you recommend?
Good. Thank you, Carol. So what I would recommend is that immigrant employees, they work hard. That first, they work hard, and you will see them working 2-3 jobs just to be able to put food on the table and provide what is needed for their children and families. That being said, I think when employees can pay more, it's something good. When I'm talking about more, I'm saying paying at least the living wage, not the minimum wage, because when you pay the minimum wage, it doesn't really help a lot. It doesn't, because people only still need to get other help from, I don't know, the city or the state to be able to live. And if you can just add 50 cents on the top of what you're doing, which is good, but maybe it's not may help a lot, but I understand there are other issues in economics, right? When we pay more, what happened? But at least if somebody can get the minimum, the living wage in the county, that there is a living wage, like in Portland, it's around 17, 11. In Lewiston and Auburn, around 14, 40 something. But let's say if you can pay the living wage, people will say yes, we'll be happy, and they may not, fear about losing other benefit, because what you will pay them will help them to live on and move forward. So employer shouldn't worry about that if they can do really a little bit of effort to provide the living wage instead of the minimum wage to employees.
Okay, thank you. And so let's move into the questions from our audience. And the first one is one that was submitted by one of our registrants, and that is, are there places where you can find intensive English language classes? And especially, are there any that are offered for free? So anyone know of free intensive English language classes?
Let me. I think
we're getting an answer from Dave, Maine Adult Ed.
I was just going to say our adult education programs statewide are wonderful resources for that, particularly in communities that do have immigrant populations. However, most of them have not had the capacity and the funding to be able to offer intensive, like 5 days a week, 3 hours a day classes. And actually this past session, the Maine Business Immigration Coalition, together with many partners, we managed to successfully get through a bill, LD 1684, to add about 1 million of funding to our adult ed ESOL program so that they will be able to add capacity. And also I want to just flag too, in that bill, and it's being designed right now, there's funding for combined ESOL job skills programs that will be sort of a grant program, and employers can apply. The application isn't ready yet, but employers can apply to be able to offer combined ESOL and job skills training at their work site.
Oh, cool.
Through this program. And it's based on basically what Barber Foods used to do for years and years and years, which really was a great recruitment and employee retention tool, and also helped employees move up. Because it's really hard for employees after a long day at work to, then go to like an evening English class when they're exhausted and they get home and they have to get dinner on the table, and then their kid needs help with homework or something, and getting out the door again is really hard. But if you can go to a class before your shift or after at work, you're more likely to be able to, continue with your English studies. So that's just one thing I want to mention. There are, you had mentioned earlier, the Portland Office of Economic Opportunity. They also, I'll say to the person who asked the question, they also run an English, an ESOL collaborative. So all the private programs, as well as the Portland Adult Eds, et cetera, are part of this collaborative, and some of those private programs may have intensive classes as well. So reaching out to Portland OEO is a good place to reach out to.
Great, terrific. How about we take a question from the audience, Strawberry? Could you queue up one of the ones we have in the Q&A?
For sure. We've got one question here. What internship opportunities are available for foreign trained professionals?
That's a good question. We're actually having discussions about how to, with a number of, with the state chamber and a number of trade associations, about how to increase those, participation in internships of immigrants. And certainly, like, I know the Retail Association of Maine and Hospitality Maine, Associated General Contractors of Maine are all doing, some type of training programs or internships or pre-apprentice programs, et cetera, as well as apprenticeships. Many of them do require that you have work authorization, though, at least if there's any federal money involved that's come through Maine DOL. So it can be a little bit tricky, but I don't know of a central clearinghouse with that information.
I know that Live and Work Maine, they have been trying to actually act as a clearinghouse for internship opportunities throughout the state. So I don't know if there's a specific aspect with respect to providing that service for people from immigrant communities, but I know that they are building on that database, that sort of clearinghouse of businesses that offer intern opportunities. So maybe there's something there. I saw two questions flash in the Q&A, and actually it echoes something that was submitted by someone who registered for this. And do you have any best practices that address integration of new Mainers in a highly regulated, heavily documented direct care industry? So I noticed that a couple of people had said that there were opportunities for English learning and CNA training at Portland Adult Ed, and I think it was one of the healthcare facilities offering something similar as well. But are there opportunities for, like, are there best practices if you're trying to attract people from an immigrant community, particularly in direct care? Is there can you offer advice and the best practices, and anyone?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So at Portland Adult Education, I know not only Portland Adult Education, but many other adult educations, they have programs that can help. And what we've observed is that we have shortage here in Maine of nurses, and we know it's a very high regulated sector. At the same time, you have many immigrants who came here with nurses degrees, and even you have physicians. They are cleaning floors and doing things that, when you see their degrees, you say, wow. So initiative has been started with Portland Adult Education to see how they can, help with licensing. And if there is any journey that those folks can go through, and the end of the day, they can become nurses or physicians. And that it is an initiative, and it has been even a research that has been done. People can reach out to New Maine Resource Centers. They may get more information about that. And on the top of that, I think other health fields like CNAs, and that is fine. That they are also programs such as Bridge to CNA. It's a program that folks, immigrants want to work in that field. They go through a language English learning program just to get to know some word or whatever, and then they can pass on to the real class of CNA, and that has been successful. I think, and there is, I think Goodwill and other organizations are involved in that initiative. I think people just need to reach out if they need help, healthcare. It has been a successful program.
Good, thank you. And so how about if we take another question from that's in the queue, Strawberry?
Sure. We often hear that we need to reach into the immigrant communities, but how can we do that specifically? We post all our jobs on Indeed, but if that doesn't reach into a community, how can we change that? We don't have staff or resources to reach out into dozens of individual small communities, unfortunately.
So if someone yeah, go ahead, Beth.
I just posted a link. I saw that question. So I just posted a link into the chat of just a couple, it's just a little one pager with just a couple of thoughts. So making sure, I know there are some adult ed folks on this program. And as far as I know, when I have worked in the past with Lewiston Adult Ed and Portland Adult Ed, et cetera, adult educators are very, very happy to share job opportunities to their adult English language learners. The New Mainers Resource Center at Portland Adult Ed also, happy to share information through getting in touch with the City of Portland's Office of Economic Opportunity if the job is in the greater Portland area. And then the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition really should be regarded as a resource. There are about 80 organizations now that are part of, we call it MERC. And there are employers who regularly will send their job postings to MERC, and it goes out to those organizations, including virtually every ethnic-based community organization in Maine. And so that's one way to get involved. And then I think, as Ben mentioned, once you're sort of reaching into a community, getting to know some of the people who, there are leaders of some of these ethnic-based community organizations, and getting to know them is a way to just go directly to some of these. And then once you do have employees, also, as Ben mentioned, there is that word of mouth. If you are a good workplace, the word will get out. People will apply to you. And treat your employees well, whether they're native born or not, and or immigrants. And the word will spread.
And
If I can just add, I know exactly how this question asker feels, with the sense of, we don't have the time, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the resources to do this. That's true for so many businesses, including us. But I always try to take a step back and remember, how much time and resources and energy am I burning scrambling because I'm understaffed and because I can't find people to hire and I can't retain people? And can I carve out that little bit of extra time and energy to make these connections now, to reduce the amount of time I spend in the future scrambling, being understaffed, and then being under-resourced because I'm understaffed? It's a vicious cycle that you have to sort of force yourself to break by diverting some effort to this outreach now, and to just making sure you're the best workplace you can be now, so that in the future you don't find yourself continuing to be underwater staffing wise.
And I think that Tabin just shared a very helpful compendium of links to all of the, well, not all of, but a lot of ethnic organizations. And if I were a business person looking to hire from an immigrant community, I would be aware of which immigrant communities are in my backyard. So if you're in the Lewiston, Auburn area, there's a really significant Somali community. If you're in the Brunswick area, there's a significant Angolese, is that the right way to say people from Angola, community? And in Portland also, there are many people from Burundi and from Iraq and from Syria. So be aware of what's nearby and maybe target your efforts that way, so you're using your time efficiently. So I think we have time for, I think we have time for one more question from the queue. And I want to just say to all of the people in the audience, this has been recorded, and all of the links that have flashed up in the chat will be part of what we post on our website after this event, as well as some of the resources that our panelists have provided. So if you're interested in pursuing any of these links, we're going to put them all together for you in one spot. So don't panic if you didn't get something copied right away. We'll make that available to you. And so with that, how about, can we take one more question? But maybe not from a dog.
I was going to say, of course, this is always when the mailman shows up. But what are strategies employers can use to tap into immigrant top talents or professionals? Those with huge amounts of experience in management, leadership, professional engineers, doctors, nurses, etc.
For that one, I would suggest the City of Portland, they have their professional connectors program, which is they have more people who want to connect than employers who have signed up to connect with them. And connectors are basically asked to have coffee with the person. And then, if you're a member, for example, of the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce, taking that person with you to an event there, and helping, introduce them to folks so that they can network. I would mention too that we got legislation passed last session that does give the Department of Professional and Financial Regulation much more flexibility in accepting foreign education credentials and foreign proof of foreign experience for any of the professions that they regulate. So, if there's somebody who you encounter and they're not sure whether their credentials will be accepted, you could help them reach out to that office and see if they can start navigating a process with that office.
Oh, great. And I'm sorry, I see that we still have 4 questions in the queue. But what we're going to do is we will take those questions and I will ask the panelists if they wouldn't mind answering them. And then we'll just distribute the answers to those 4 remaining questions in our emails, because everyone who registered for this event, we have your email. And so when the video is ready to post, we will send out an email to everyone, and we will, I hope, include the answers to those 4 remaining questions. So, we have hit the 2 o'clock enchantment hour here. And I wanted to say thank you very much to our panelists. You guys were terrific. If we were doing this in person, there would be thunderous applause right now, but we're really very grateful that you shared your expertise and your insight. I'd like to thank all of you who signed up for this event. This is our last Making It Work for 2021, but we'll be back next year with more B2B webinars, so stay tuned for that. And we would also like to thank our sponsors, because we wouldn't be able to do this without your support. And I have one final plug. If you're still looking for some great little gift to stick in a stocking, we are offering great deals on subscriptions to the Portland Press Herald. And so I would encourage you to consider that and to support the great journalism that we do here. And with that, I would finally say happy holidays to everyone, and thank you again. Take care.